Hello class and welcome to week 2 of History and Systems of Psychology. This lecture video will serve the purpose as to reviewing your weekly activities as well as going over a few components of the chapter that I want you to focus on for your review. So let's jump right in. This week you should have submitted your discussion board post as well as 2 responses to your classmates. You also should have submitted your papers. So I did get a quick glance at some of the papers that you guys submitted, and I think that you guys will do great on them. So I want to commend you on that. So if there's any other people that haven't submitted their assignments, please feel free to email me and reach out to me, and we can work something out with that. So for this week, we're in week 2, of course. So the main area of focus in this week will be what is this? Exam 1. So I did take a look. That alert popped up, so I'll talk about that. I did take a look at your exam, just so I had a background on what exactly the exam is looking for, so you guys have a good study guide. There usually is study guides within the learning activities, but for this course, for some reason, there is not. So if that is something that you guys would like in the future, is to have study guides for the exams, please let me know. And I'm not exactly sure how long the exam is, but if you have some issues with the length of the exam, because it is 25 questions, please let me know with that as well, so I can make some adjustments. Because I believe in the previous course we had a few errors within the length amount of time. It was like 20 minutes for 25 questions, which is impossible. Just so you guys have that information, just let me know. So for this week, of course, you'll be reading chapters 3 and 4, and the exam will be over chapters 1 through 4. So that's the main focus of this week. You'll have supplemental reading, which will include articles and excerpts from William James, William Wundt, and Bacon. These are key people in psychology, so just take your time with these articles, and also read in your textbook about, these psychologists and philosophers. So you'll also have a video. I believe this video will help you out too in regards to your exam. It has some great historical knowledge about the mind, self, and soul, and it's a part 1 of History of Psychology. So check this out. And you can't really see it right now because I have to log in, and I have not logged in, but just for a review. And also there's a website review on phrenology. So phrenology was the predecessor for contemporary psychology. So this came before psychology. So it's important to look back and see what exactly scientists and psychologists studied prior to contemporary psychology. You'll also have your discussion board post. Your initial post should be 300 words. And your responses to your classmates should be 50 words. And this is just a breakdown of the scoring, and we reviewed that last week as well. So I know I'm probably zooming through this information, but I don't want to spend too much time as usual. It's a lot of reading for you guys, and you do have an exam. But I do want to touch on a few key areas of focus. So in regards to chapter 3, so there's a couple areas of information that I want to focus on. And I think that I want you guys to look back, and of course this is a history course. So it gives you the breakdown of, where psychology started, what was developed prior to what we know now, and things like that. So I want you guys to take a look into, the Renaissance period, and other eras that may have contributed to psychology. See. So I've been having some issues with these PowerPoints. I'm not sure why they're not zooming down like I want them to. But, so there's a few things I want to touch on too. When speaking in terms of psychology, prior to psychology and the beliefs that we believe now, there were other, religion-based and folk knowledge that the people believed. So mysticism was one of those. Mysticism was a belief that in the existence of realities beyond perceptual reflection or scientific explanations, but they are accessible by subjective experience. And this was more equivalent in the lives of, Jewish and Christian religious people, as well as Muslim communities in the Middle East and North Africa. So this is what they believed. And, it's similar to, I want to say, faith nowadays. We have these, we have Christianity, we have so many different religions, and how we believe in the existence of a greater power and a greater force. And that's basically what this entailed. There's no scientific explanation. There's no physical proof. However, it's still experienced by different people in a subjective way. So this is what I would consider modern day, religion and beliefs. However, on the other hand, there was also a folk knowledge that was considered what they determined for specific beliefs, which was witchcraft. And this is, of course, was articulated in evidence of what they called work of the devil. So this was symptoms that you may have seen nowadays that may have appeared to be psychotic or, things like manic episodes or anxiety or delusions, hallucinations, or behavioral issues, and things like that. Those are what they consider to be witchcraft. So in today's times, if someone has a panic attack, and in times before, in the Renaissance era or things like that, that was considered witchcraft. So it's just important to know those things, and it's actually interesting to think about when you think about the Salem witch trials. About so many people were murdered because they were believed to be a witch, when all actuality they could have been suffering from mental health issues. It could have been manic. They could have been having psychotic episodes. So it's just interesting and very, I think, intriguing to think about. Before we had all this modern day psychology and medicine, what it was like to live in the Renaissance times and times before we have all this information that we do now. So with that being said, there's a couple of people that I want you guys to focus. Rene Descartes was an area of focus, as well as Leibniz, and there's a few other people, Hobbes as well. They all were, key influencers in the development of psychology and things like that. Also, John Locke. I want to spend a little bit of time on Locke. Locke believed that a child's mind is a clean board. So he basically believed that experiences can be recorded in the mind in a fashion similar to the way in which teachers use a piece of chalk to write on the board. So in that scenario, it's a child's mind in his eyes was a clean whiteboard. So it's blank, it's free to be written on. However, as soon as something is written on that, it can be easily erased. So I think that this is an area of discussion that definitely was incorporated and used. However, thinking in terms of today, I think that we learned that we develop over time, and the thoughts and ideas and beliefs that we once had as a child grow and as we become adults. So this talks about epistemology. I know it was discussed. I didn't discuss it. That's something that Hobbes was influential in. He laid the foundation for the empirical branch of epistemology and supported empiricism, which is a scientific belief that experience, especially sensory processes, is the main source of knowledge. So his main focus was your experience is and your sensory processes, what you see, taste, feel, think, are all components of the main source of knowledge. So speaking back to Locke, he continued to distinguish between the primary and secondary quality of things. So, of course, primary qualities are inseparable from the body and reflect the qualities of objects. These include extension, motion, number, and firmness. And secondary qualities such as color, taste, exist only in sensations. So he separated a lot of our five senses. And this is how he described how we distinguish things and how we experience things, which is rather interesting. So George Berkeley was also in that. David Hume, I believe you have some exam questions on David Hume. If not one, not two, maybe one question. So I think it's important to dig a little deeper into him. And he contributed to psychology by developing pragmatic views in the fields of naturalism and instrumentalism. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So naturalism refers to the view that observable events can be explained only by natural causes without assuming the existence of a divine, paranormal, or supernatural causes such as magic or evil eye. So that's interesting. I think that a lot of what he says can be contributed to what other philosophers and psychologists think about in modern terms nowadays. Instrumentalism, also applied to Hume's work, means that humans' actions is responsible as long as it justifies this individual's goals. So if your actions are, say for instance, if you are stealing something, or your action, you steal something, your individual goal is to obtain something. So he believed that it's reasonable as long as it's justified by your goals, which isn't really the case. But, and that may not be a real life example of what he's meaning, but just to give you an idea of what that could mean. So he had, of course, views of personality, and I do believe this question is on your exam. So he had four views. They were, sorry, I didn't mean to scroll down. The Epicurean, display of elegance and seeks pleasure. The Stoic is a person of action and virtue. And just to note, Stoic is interesting that he used that term, because in psychology terms today, Stoic means the complete opposite of that. So the Platonist is a person of contemplation and philosophical devotion, and the Skeptic is the person of critical thinking. So just remember, those were his four views of personality. Immanuel Kant, and the Golden Rule. And as I mentioned before, I don't want to spend too much time. Rousseau is an important person to look back on. He coined the term noble savage, which suggested that people were essentially good when they lived under the rules of nature before modern civilization were created. So that is an important component to take away from that. And I think that's it. So let me jump into chapter 4 and see if there's anything else I want to talk to you about. Let me see. Sorry, let me close this. Oops. Okay. Let me scroll through here and see if there's anything else I want to talk to you guys about. So phrenology, I believe I discussed this probably about 10 minutes ago. As I mentioned before, a theory connecting the size and shape of the brain with human behavior and the individual's personality. So this is an important component that was prior to psychology and things like that. So this is what they relied on. So Gall divided the brain into two large groups in 37 zones representing emotional characteristics, such as desires to live, reverence, or imitation, and intellectual characteristics, such as order, calculation, and comparison. So similar to what it is today, that our brain is divided up in sections, and each part, our component, has a specific job. So this is basically similar to what we believe today. Phrenology turned into a popular movement with dozens of phrenology societies formed in Europe and the United States. In the 19th century, phrenology became a big business. People were willing to pay money to get validated. So, as I mentioned before, this was prior to psychology and the development of psychology. So, they used this sort of, I want to say, graph or chart to to distinguish, characteristics about human behavior based on the brain shape and size, which is interesting. Considering nowadays there's more to it than just the size and the shape of the brain. Let me see. He is a key contributor to psychology. He was the founder of the first psychological laboratory in Leipzig, in Germany. 33 American and scores of students from other countries worked on their doctoral degree under his supervision. And he has plenty of academic accomplishments that contribute to the study of psychology. But you'll read more about that whenever you are in your reading in your chapters. So there's many things that he contributes to. One of the main things that he is known for is his book, The Principles of Psychological Psychology. Of course, he's known for starting the first campus psychological laboratory in Leipzig. And also, he developed lots of new research programs for psychology that became ultimately the model to follow in these times. He involved evaluations of quality, intensity, and duration of experiences in relation to physical stimuli and how we use our brain and things like that. So some interesting stuff came from Wundt's first laboratory. And actually, whenever you guys, if you are considering pursuing a degree in psychology, you will need to know a lot of that background information. Because of him, a lot of things were contributed. Let me see. More on Wundt's views. I think that's it. I think that's all I want to talk to you guys about today. You guys will read more within the chapter. But I just wanted to touch on that just so you guys some background information on the material that I'm looking for. As of right now, I don't think I have anything else for you guys. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. I will look forward to reading your papers, and I should have those graded no later than, I want to say, Thursday, end of business day. But if I don't, then look for them on Friday. But like I said, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. Other than that, I will meet with you guys next week. As always, I like to jump into the next week to see if there's anything pressing that I will discuss with you guys. So it doesn't look like much, but you do have a project that's due next week, and I'll discuss that further detail next week. So just keep an eye out for that. And as I mentioned, I will talk to you guys later. Have a great week.